90-day fiancé couple Julia Trubkina and Brandon Gibbs are giving signs they're not together in 2024. Here's why they could be heading towards divorce. 90-day fiancé couple Brandon Gibbs and Julia Trubkina might no longer be together, as per several clues that have recently surfaced online. Brandon and Julia, both 30, made their reality TV debut in 90-day fiancé Season 8. Julia from Krasnodar, Russia, faced culture shock as she arrived from a big city to Virginia, where she had to start her new life with Brandon on a Dinwiddie farm. Brandon's nosy and overprotective parents, Betty and Ron Gibbs, were highly involved in the couple's relationship, even forbidding them from having intimate relations before marriage. Life got a lot better for Julia after she managed to move out with Brandon. Her relationship with her in-laws also improved, but that was the case only for a short time. In 2024, Julia has hinted at a split with Brandon on various occasions, including recently when she wished him a happy 4th wedding anniversary. Julia revealed that she and Brandon were living separately but refused to tell her fans the reason why. Julia has hinted at his family being at fault, and it's likely that the couple is no longer together because of Ron and Betty. Julia and Brandon had been married for 3 years in May 2023 when she lashed out at her fans on Instagram. Julia wrote a long post expressing that they had not tried to make babies yet because that had never been their goal. Julia wrote that the time when people decide to have kids is not something that society should decide for them. Julia said that no one knew what was going on in her life. She and Brandon were focused on solving important questions about their future. She confessed she had health issues without going into detail. Julia wanted her fans to know that they had no intention of having kids. The fans who kept asking her when she was going to have a baby were being weird and intrusive. Julia's supporters reached out to her in the comments praising her decision to be child-free. They asked her to take things slow and not feel bad about her choice to have children or not. Julia should have been doing what she thought was best for her and Brandon. However, Brandon had a completely different take on the topic of kids. In June 2023, Brandon shared a photo of him kissing Julia and added, "I keep hearing this question from everyone, and they asked me my opinion about children." Brandon wrote that it was hard for him not to be 100% ready to have kids. Part of him was telling Brandon to start trying. He wrote that we had a conversation with Julia, but she said no. Brandon mentioned that he didn't have the right to force Julia or do something without her approval before adding, "I'm talking about children." 90-day fiancé Nono Furbas, 5,876, and countless others concluded that Brandon was referring to his parents Ron and Betty when he said, "we." It made it seem like Brandon's parents were involved in yet another conversation in his and Julia's relationship, which was none of their business. Brandon's followers told him there shouldn't have been any "we" in this case, just him and his wife. He was asked to keep his parents out of it, especially any decisions about kids, if he had an ounce of respect for Julia. Brandon didn't respond to any of the comments. Julia and Brandon's last appearance together in the franchise was in 2024's 90-Day Diaries. The couple were shown discussing how they were struggling financially. Brandon wished for Julia to get a job even if it was a small one. However, Julia admitted she had tried her hand at everything but had failed miserably at keeping one. Julia used to work as a go-go dancer in South Korea when she met Brandon. While Brandon's family didn't have any issues with Julia's past profession, they didn't want her to continue working in strip clubs. Even in the U.S., Julia had been helping Brandon's dad on their farm and participating in their dog breeding business. Julia had worked as a professional dancer, waitress, babysitter, administrator, saleswoman, hookah girl, fitness instructor, writer, designer, and more in the past. Since coming to the U.S., viewers have seen her try her hand at everything from modeling to dog training to stand-up comedy. Unfortunately, Julia was failing at everything and thought of going back to dancing. Julia was sure that she could make a double of what Brandon made by dancing at the strip club. Brandon told Julia he didn't want her to be doing what a lot of proud guys probably wouldn't want their girlfriends or wives to be doing. Julia mocked Brandon by saying her ex-boyfriend would have been fine with her dancing. At that point, Brandon asked Julia to go back to her ex-boyfriend. Julia had gone for an audition at the strip club without telling Brandon. The woman auditioning her told Julia she could make up to $1,000 cash on a bid night. Since Virginia was conservative, Julia was not required to be nude or wear see-through clothing. Julia was offered the job on the spot, but she informed the woman that she needed to talk to her husband before accepting it. As expected, Brandon disapproved of Julia's job. He was embarrassed to tell anyone that his wife worked at a place with strippers. Brandon was also not okay with Julia working as a bartender there. Julia thought Brandon was being over the top, putting an end to the argument. In the same season, it was revealed that 90D's Brandon and Julia were living a few hours away from his parents. Brandon decided to give his mom a key to their house without letting Julia know. Betty was elated to have a key to her son's home, so she could come and go as she pleased, but Julia wasn't happy. Betty and Ron threw a lot of tantrums in front of the couple, and eventually, Ron threw the key in Julia's face, insulting her. Ron's anger didn't go unnoticed, while Brandon was slammed by fans for not taking a stand. Julia officially became a United States citizen in March 2024. She celebrated the occasion by sharing a photo of her standing outside the Walter E. Hoffman U.S. Courthouse in Norfolk, Virginia. Julia's journey to getting citizenship was difficult. In 2022, Julia revealed her immigration situation and the possibility of deportation. She claimed her green card was expiring. Julia had seemingly not filed an I-751 to remove the conditions on her 2-year conditional resident green card. Moreover, Julia's legal documents were stolen in 2023 after someone broke into her car, which made it harder for her to apply for citizenship. However, fans were quick to notice that Brandon was not with Julia at her citizenship ceremony. Julia had been hinting at marital concerns, and her husband not joining her for such a big event hinted at a possible divorce. As fans speculated among themselves about Brandon's whereabouts, Julia confirmed she was at the naturalization ceremony with a friend and that Brandon did not accompany her there. In March 2024, Reddy or Bailey was on a solo retreat in Arizona when they claimed they'd come across several 90-Day Fiancé cast members filming something. They claimed to have spotted Rob Warren and Sophie Sierra, Jasmine Pineda and Gino Palazzolo, Ariela Weinberg and Beniam Schreiber, and Brandon and Julia. The show is rumored to premiere sometime later this year. Brandon and Julia reportedly seeking couples therapy on the spin-off for pairs that have read their breaking points speaks a lot about the current state of their marriage, even if Brandon and Julia keep talking in circles.